So this is an interesting one for me too, in that I have seen this for years, and it can be more complicated. But let's just start with the most basic, where it's perceived that this is what my neighbors are doing, this is what the people who do life, the parents of my kids, classmates, this is what my family got to for their levels of wealth. This is what people like me, of my gender, or of my socioeconomic status, or of my age, or of, my whatever. But just as holding oneself to what one sees around themselves as what like your family members have been able to get to, or your neighbors have been able to get to. And I find this, sorry, I'm playing with my hair, it's getting a little humid out here. I find this, again, this is another place where I can really speak from authority. I find that extremely limiting when looking at like what's possible for me. I've had different incarnations from my brothers and my parents, and it's a different era now than my parents grew up in. And this is where I was meaning it could get more complex, in that I've seen some people hold themselves back from rising up in their educational status or their financial status because they don't unconsciously want to offend their parents by doing better than their parents had. Even though that's like kind of the goal of parenting, is to set your kids up to do better than you ever did. There's like this unconscious desire to show loyalty. So you don't want to move, I've seen this, the person doesn't want to move too far beyond their parents as a showing of loyalty and not wanting to disrespect. But just it's an aspect of groupthink, and I've always been outside of that. I was a floater in high school. I was, a jock, but I was also an A+ student, but I also partied. I just didn't fit in anywhere. I just had friends in every group and was a floater. And so allowing yourself to understand you're on your own path is one way to stop stopping yourself. Because you could have done stuff in another lifetime that allows you to get freer than your spouse. You could have done stuff, virtuous stuff, in another lifetime, so your karma is better financially than your brothers or your sisters or your best friends. You could have a heart that is meant to really be a guiding light for others as your path, as your soul's destiny, where Jane Doe over there doesn't. So this idea of comparison, here's another thing that's pretty interesting. When I lived in Taiwan for the decade that I did, it was very eye-opening for me to finally understand that not that I was working a long time to understand it, but after all, like looking into the effects of past lives and reincarnation and the research, there was this understanding I had that when a child over there, the way they view it is when a child in like the first couple of years of life shows an inherent passion or talent for something, it's a carryover from a past life. And in fact, the symmetry, shape of our face is similar from lifetime to lifetime. They don't divide lifetime to lifetime with this sense of much more absolute division like we do in the West. It's much more flowing one lifetime into the next. So I really want to give that to you. Well, it's really humid because I see that comparison thing even before amongst my students. I don't mean in the classroom. I mean like as they were in my mastermind training to become vibrational upgrade practitioners. I remember one person in particular doing comparison all the time, like, well, she can do this and I'm not there yet and I've been working with you longer. But the woman who I'm talking about came in with so much more trauma to clear. While she may be better at some things than that other person she's comparing herself against is. So it's just, there's so much to each of us that comparison is unnecessary, but people stop themselves by saying, I can't do more than, it's unconscious, you don't really hear it. You might hear it like settling, a choice where you're settling, or a choice where your mind has said, don't bother. So that comes from the comparison, and you end up stopping yourself. And that's what I'm asking you to stop, so you can stop stopping yourself, because it's not real. And in fact, you'll end up inspiring those around you by rising above it. as well as you'll gain so much more life force and libido, frankly, and energy and vitality if you make choices for yourself that are juicing you up, that you know you need to make, rather than avoiding them.
Yeah.